this amazing boat?
Well, designed by my uncle in Singapore after the war, 1948-49, built by Malay shipwrights to his own very unique design, and then sailed when it was completed, 1950, all the way back to the UK, to home port of Salcombe, which is where my uncle came from in the first place. And for that journey he had a crew of naval officers, an Admiralty shipwright and his Chinese cook. And it was turned into a book, or he wrote a book about it, which was a bestseller at the time, 1950, and it was quite a story after the war. So that's where the history of Boley really starts, as one man's unique boat, achieving his dream, which he most certainly did, and producing something pretty impressive really. Small boat, 40 foot, 16 tons, able to sail halfway around the world. It started at the beginning of January and they ended in September. So quite a time, 10,000 plus miles, and calling in at a whole series of ports on the way.
I mean, she is unique, isn't she?
She's got some features that I don't think you will find anywhere else. The quadruped mast with a sliding gunter yard going up a jackstay in the middle of it is obviously something that, as far as I know, has never been produced anywhere else. He produced another new idea, which was an inboard-outboard drive driven by an 8.5 horsepower Stuart Turner engine, which again must have been one of the very first inboard-outboard drives. I may say it didn't work very well, but the point was he invented it. He also designed the sails with what is now a windsurfer type of aerofoil boom, and he produced a sail made in 3 parts with wishbone booms, 2 wishbone booms, which again, when the wind and sea conditions were right, worked extremely well, but actually failed the test of going all the way back to the UK, because in the tropics, where there were calms but swell, these enormous booms eventually broke up. So he abandoned that idea when he got probably 2/3 of the way through his journey. But they do work, and in the right conditions. And we've actually, in this restoration, made that Chinese rig. We haven't used it yet, but we have it ready to use when we have time on our hands.
Tell me a little bit about the construction, because I think you had mentioned earlier about there's a certain aeroplane part in this boat, isn't there?
Well, yes. The main construction, of course, is out of a type of Malay antique, chenga, which is 1.5 times as heavy as oak, and if you put it in the water on its own, doesn't float. So she is built like a battleship in her hull. Amazingly robust. And then, because this was after the war, and because my uncle had been a fighter pilot with the Fleet Air Arm, he thought he would use 1 or 2 bits of Japanese military hardware and incorporate it in his design. So she has skylights forward made from the windscreens of Japanese fighter planes, and they're very effective.
Tell me a little bit more about the boat.
She's about 40 foot long, 16.5 tons, heavily built, designed for ocean sailing, quadruped mast, these strange Chinese junk rig, beautifully fitted out with teak, and built for ocean sailing. There's no other description than that. And she had bamboo spars, which were called her trade wind rig, which really are running booms on the port and starboard side, and she also had a rafee rigged at the very top of the mast, so that you had these 3 triangles hanging out plus some mainsail when in trade wind. Regrettably, on his voyage home, they had a particularly poor deal on trade winds, but when they did have it up, they took some lovely pictures which are in the book. She went like a train, 9 knots, so which is pretty good for a boat of this displacement and length of keel. The boat itself, well, below the waterline, she is a traditional long-keeled ocean-going yacht, 4.5 tons of Admiralty lead in the keel. but she's very bluff in the bow, so head seas and headwinds aren't too good. She points quite well, but can be stopped by short seas. She has an open stern. Again, there's a bit of the Chinese junk about her, a bit of a dhow as well, because my uncle's career in the Navy had taken him to all the places where those boats operate. And she has a lines which remind you above the water of a dhow, without any doubt at all, but the open stern and the blunt bow are definitely junk-like. So here's a very strange mixture.
What we've got here is a sliding gunter yard which goes up and down a jackstay, fixed jackstay, which goes from the steering point here up to the main cross trees, and that secures through this gooseneck fitting the heel of the yard. When fully rigged, the gooseneck goes up to the bottom of that top yard there, and then you've got the full volume of canvas deployed. At the moment she's got two reefs in, and clearly therefore with the slab reefing you can see that hooked in there. If you imagine that this is a dinghy rather than a sailing yacht, it's quite usual to have a gunter rig that you slip up the main mast of the dinghy. Well, we don't have a main mast here because we've got these quadruped masts. We have to replace that with the jackstay. So that is what that does. And then when you're actually hoisting the sail, the first thing you do is feed it into the yard, and it runs up a rabbit in the yard. And then as you deploy the whole sail, you have a lacing here which holds it against this jackstay. That hoists it up. It's a fairly cumbersome way of doing it, but that's what my uncle designed, and it's worked, and we've replicated it here in this restoration.
And she used to have an outside toilet, didn't she?
Yes, well, ocean-going sailing allows you to make use of the elements, and she did indeed have a thunderbox on the stern, which doubled up as a ladder for coming aboard from your dinghy through the stern, which is very convenient use for the open stern.
One candid camera, George.
I know, I want to be sitting down.
It'd be far easier, you know, to go with the heads inside.
Yeah, except they're blocked, Rich.
Well, no, they're not blocked. No, yeah, you can use them.
Yeah. Look the other way.
But the design of the open stern that my uncle put onto the boat was he had a fear that very heavy seas coming on his ocean sailing, coming in over the front, would hold her down. So by having an open stern, it could go right out through the back end.
Can you just go into a little bit more detail about the sail plan on this boat? I'm just a little bit confused.
Well, and rightly so.
Oh, good.
Because it's not straightforward. She is, of course, a sloop, a single headsail, twin forestays, and a triangular Bermudan sail. That's what it looks like. Because the mainsail, and I mentioned the Chinese rig and the wishbone booms, when she is equipped with her original designed rig, she will have a three-part mainsail with these wishbone booms, two wishbone booms, and then a single shorter boom, all lashed together in the way that a junk sail is. And the advantages of that, apart from the aerofoil section which I mentioned, claimed by my uncle, and I have to say claimed by my uncle because I haven't experienced it myself, is that it's much easier to reef if you can just drop a wishbone boom down and lash them together. We've got slab reefing at the moment, and that seems remarkably simple, but we'll wait and see when we actually try that out.
Today's sail was a little bit special. Tell me about it.
Oh, yes, well, it was special because personally it's the first time I've actually done anything other than sailing on trials for Berlin. But the most important thing was I had with me two colleagues from the 1960s, who had been part of us all learning to sail bowlay together when we were at the Naval College of Dartmouth. And Brian Burns and Chris Dorr were my regular colleagues sailing bowlay back then, and it was the first time we'd sailed together since the end of the 1960s. So quite a memorable occasion for all of us.